being that close to that event, how did you feel about the event, the experience, what the racers experienced, and how you think the pro event added to our event in Chicago?
Yeah, I think it was super cool to be part of SUPERTRI. And I got to participate in the event and get involved more.
Welcome back, everyone, to our Tri 312 multi-sport, formerly Multi-Sport Mondays, now possibly Multi-Sport Monthly, where Coach Joy, Coach Chris, and myself, Coach Brian, talk about all things triathlon or triathlon adjacent in the world of, or in the community around the Chicagoland area. So we've had a little bit of a hiatus because it has been super busy here in the Chicagoland area with all things races, triathlons, marathons, half marathons, crit races. I mean, you name it, we have had run literally the gambit of all sorts of races and events here in Chicagoland, but we're back and we are here to chat about all of those things. So our first segment today, we're going to talk a little bit about all of these races that we've had within the last month that we've been away, and then we will segue into what is coming. We have two major events, one of those being here in Chicago, and then a little discussion amongst the three of us about what it is to think about and schedule things in the off season, what that looks like for us, and what we typically recommend to a lot of our athletes. So Coach Joy, Coach Chris, welcome. How are you guys? And what has been going on?
Oh God, everything.
Yeah, a lot of local racing. It's like the whole late summer, early fall is the busiest, well, at least locally, racing season, but globally as well. I feel like there's a million different races to catch up on these days.
For sure. And we're going to try to keep it relatively simple today with all the things that either we participated in or were relatively big stories over the last month and a half that we've last chatted, the three of us. So for our listeners, some of the big events have been like, obviously, the Chicago Triathlon. We'll talk a little bit about that. We had a new event associated with the Chicago Triathlon, and that's because SUPERTRI was in town with their pro event that immediately began right after the age group events on Sunday. Joy, you've had a couple of half iron distance races and triathlons in the sort of greater Midwest area down in Louisville. So we will talk about those. We have big events happening up in Madison, Wisconsin. And of course, we just recently finished the Women's World Championship in Nice, France. So we're going to talk about some of those things. So Joyce, start us off. How was your race season? Tell us a little bit about the events that were happening in Louisville. How did you do? And what did you think of the events?
So I started July with Tri Louisville, which was a prequel for Louisville 70.3, which technically you're still swimming in the Ohio River, but the bike and the run courses were different. This has been 5 years since an iron distance race has been in Louisville. Number one, the production was amazing. The swim, we did not know if it was going to happen because of an algae bloom. The swim did happen. Point-to-point swim. The bike. For anyone who is not a climber, this is a challenging bike course. I got through it in one piece. I am not a climber, but the bike course was absolutely gorgeous and beautiful with the horse farms, the horses seeing what we're doing. The run course is the reverse. If you've ever done the Urban Bourbon Half Marathon, it is the reverse of that course. So the first 8 miles was uphill. So I did okay. I was actually proud of myself for doing such a challenging course. The course is actually, to put it in perspective, with Chattanooga 70.3. This course is harder in terms of the bike and in terms of the run. So if you're looking for a challenging course, definitely come down to Louisville. Just note it's August in Louisville, which means hot and humid. So, but I can truly say it was a very well put together race. The finish line was, I believe, 4th Street Live. Um, it was covered. So even if it was a rainstorm, everyone's covered. And just the energy of the crowds, there's bars on either side. It was great. So look for that for next year.
Nice.
Joy, what was the swim like? You said the water temperature was pretty high. Was it a wetsuit legal swim
It
or
was
not?
a wetsuit optional. I would not personally wear a wetsuit. I will wear a swim skin, which I didn't wear because I didn't want to overheat. The water temperature was like 83 and it was very hot and humid. So the sun is blaring down on you while you're swimming. So I would not pack a wetsuit. If you're going to bring something, bring your swim skin.
Did they have, because of that temperature being so high and it's wetsuit optional, the people who decided to wear wetsuits, did they have to start at the end of the race,
They
basically?
started at the very back. Like, no, I will. It's wise just in training in general to know how to be able to swim your distance or over distance in a wetsuit and without a wetsuit, just in case that happens if the water is too warm for a wetsuit.
And I know I did the full Ironman when they used to have that in Louisville, and I remember back in the day they used to make you weigh in on a scale when you checked in at the Ironman event because with the extreme heat, a lot of people would sweat so much over the day they would lose a lot of body weight, and so if you ended up in the medical tent, they wanted to weigh you after to see how much weight you had lost. And that was when Ironman used to do a study on like how much people sweat and lose and over the course of an Ironman. This is going back 15 years
Wow.
plus. But yeah, so that was because Louisville was known as one of the hottest like full Ironman races, which made it pretty challenging, especially with the hills as well. But I'd say for anyone who likes hot weather, Louisville might be your race. Good challenging course overall. And you mentioned 4th Street Live, and for people who aren't familiar with that, that's basically a city block that has a covered atrium, over it, right? And there's restaurants along the finish
Yes.
line and plenty of hotel options nearby too, right? So from a logistics standpoint, would you say that was a pretty easy race logistically with staying nearby and having food options and stuff?
Logistically, yes. And also, if you're not looking to stay in Louisville, you can stay over the river in Jeffersonville, Indiana, and just walk over. There's a biking bridge that you can bike over or run over. It's very close.
Cool.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you for the update, Joy. Congratulations on all the Louisville races. And I think that, speaking of, like understanding the dynamics of wetsuit legal, wetsuit optional, wetsuit prohibitive, I think we're starting to see more and more, unfortunately, for better or for worse, that a lot of our races, even here in the Midwest, we may not be as traditionally used to that, but several of our races have started to become in that sort of range. So this is good for athletes and coaches alike to be anticipating of varying types of water temperatures and not just to assume that a wetsuit will be available to you to do the swim unless you are, okay with, as Joy mentioned, starting from the very back of the pack, because that if it is wetsuit optional, that is can still use a wetsuit or buoyancy shorts or something with neoprene, but you have to start in the back group. So make sure that everybody's aware that these things are probably becoming more prevalent. That again, that you have the ability to be able to swim that distance without a wetsuit, in addition to with. I know it makes it a little bit harder with being here in Chicago, and if we have an early season race like Rockford coming up, that we may not get as much opportunity to train without a wetsuit. So try the different things you can in the pool in some body of water where you can feel more and more confident without swimming with a wetsuit or with that added buoyancy. So any other thoughts on that, Joy or Chris?
No, not really. I mean, I've been in races where you couldn't wear a wetsuit. And depending on if you're swimming in a lake, a river, or an ocean, that's going to also play a different role in it as well.
For sure.
Yeah, be ready for anything on race day, basically.
Yeah.
Temperature wise and equipment wise.
Yeah. Speaking of which, rolling right into the biggest event that happened in Chicago very recently, which is our Chicago Triathlon, now hosted and sponsored by SUPERTRI, which had the pros here for the first time for a completely different type of event that the three of us got to experience and enjoy after the race on that Sunday. But Chris, talk us through all the things that, since you are now officially a part of the SUPERTRI group, tell us about your experience with the entire event weekend, from the Saturday races for the kids race, the super sprint, your divvy division, your sprints and Olympics on Sunday, the pro division, and what SUPERTRI event was on that Sunday, excuse me. So being that close to that event, how did you feel about the event, the experience, what the racers experienced, and how you think the pro event added to our event in Chicago?
Yeah, I think it was super cool to be part of SUPERTRI. And I got to participate in the event and get involved more. But yeah, it was exciting. The race itself, I think for most people, they might not have noticed much of a difference. The change in ownership from Lifetime to SUPERTRI, I think went pretty smooth. A lot of the same crew, producing the event, just SUPERTRI there, adding more to it, basically. So we had the corporate challenge was a new program. For example, like if you work for a company, you can now create a company team, even with like two people, and have the option of potentially getting in an early wave. So I got involved in that. That whole program is basically a fundraiser supporting Lurie Children's Hospital in Chicago as well. So that was fun. And then I got to help and coordinate a lot of the club teams as well, get them kind of signed up. We had the state championship for the first time for USA Triathlon. So basically, that just means if you finish the top percentage of your age group, like usually the top 25 to 33%, or up to 35%, you can qualify for the USAT national championships at the state championships, and you can also win a state title. So you get like a special certificate as a state's champion of your age group if you win your age group. So they had those new things going on, which I think added to it. I did my usual crazy challenge, which I call the 4-star challenge, the quad, basically doing all, not just the triple challenge, but adding on a divvy division as well. If you do the super sprint fast enough in the first wave, you can still have enough time to do the last wave. So actually, one of our other athletes joined me in that challenge, and I think she might have been the first female to ever officially complete the quad, the 4-star challenge. So that was fun for me, but very exhausting because it was a hot weekend. So it was definitely a long weekend of challenges and logistics and all that. But the coolest part was the SUPERTRI event, which if people aren't familiar, that's basically the pro athletes. A lot of them were the Olympians who came from Paris straight to Chicago. Basically, they did an event in Boston the week before, or a couple weeks before, and then came to Chicago. 1 week before, I believe. And so they were in town. It was we had 11 of the medalists from the Olympic Games in town participating, and they had their men's and women's race that happened right after the Chicago Tri in the new SUPERTRI format, which is 3 kind of super duper sprint triathlons back to back to back without any stopping in between. So they did swim, bike, run, swim, bike, run, swim, bike, run, and on looped courses. And they did it right along the waterfront. So they biked on the running path, essentially, which made for very exciting draft legal racing, very fun for spectating. So we had a lot of athletes were down there by what we call Queen's Landing near Buckingham Fountain. And I thought it went really, really well. It was a cool new type of format of triathlon. It makes the sport, I think, more entertaining to watch. in such a short time frame. Watching all those pros race was quite impressive. And yeah, I think it's going to continue to come back to Chicago from what I've heard so far. I don't think they've officially announced it, but yeah, the pros should be back next year for the same thing. Might play around with, when the race starts and whatnot after the age group race, or maybe even before. So still some new things to come with the Chicago Tri in the future. And registration actually will open on, I believe, we haven't officially announced it, but November 1st or thereabouts, probably. So stay tuned. Might be a couple other exciting new changes going into the new year, but you can expect, it is, for those who aren't that familiar, Chicago Tri was the world's largest triathlon. The Guinness Book of World Records actually counted the number of finishers to earn that title many years ago. So it's quite a production, and yeah, it makes for a fun and long weekend. It's great to be in a big city where the entire city kind of shuts down its biggest road for triathletes for a day. So I know I had a lot of fun, and you guys were there too. So it's always fun to have the family there, and all of our athletes and communities come together for one big day of triathlon.
For sure. And Joy, from your point of view, how did you feel the pro race went? What was your experience? What was your opinion of it?
The pro race, I think it went very well, and making it, as Chris said, the super duper sprint, it makes it more interactive, but also more engaging. So for folks who think that triathlon is boring, yes, triathlon can actually be fun. And just looking at strategies, seeing the pros doing draft legal and just going from literally the swim, like hopping on their bike, getting on the bike, hopping on the bike, getting their shoes on as fast as possible, and then kicking their shoes off to jump right back in the lake. It makes it more exciting, but also just seeing how quick, we talk about transitions, how quick these transitions are versus maybe 4 minutes, might be 10 minutes. They're doing it in less than
4
30
seconds and 10 seconds.
Right.
Well, and they have to, because in that format of race, if they fall more than 90 seconds back, they get cut from the race. They don't get to continue on. So it's a lot of pressure, but it's when I actually got a good opportunity to help the pros train, like have access to a swimming pool and get their training in and talk to them. And they said they love doing the SUPERTRI races because it's actually, for them, it's like point based for teams.
Yeah.
And so they're, instead of always competing against each other, which they're still competing against the other athletes on the teams, but they're working together as a team.
Right.
There's more team tactics and things at play. But for them, it's less pressure too. They don't have even though there's points in a championship for that SUPERTRI season, there's not as much pressure as Olympic qualifying and things like that. So they told me they just enjoy doing the SUPERTRI races because it's fun for them and it's fun for the spectators to watch too.
That's great. And speaking of our spectators, for all of our listeners, all in our Tri 312 community, if this is something that interests you and you want to stay on top of things, go to I was about to say Tri 312. Go to SUPERTRI, go and check out and see where all the athletes are. I mean, they keep everybody updated on the different events that they're going to, like where the point standings are, who's doing what. They're super active on the social medias, including like LinkedIn, like showcasing like all the different teams and all the different stories. So wherever you guys interact with, please, I'd highly suggest go checking those out and staying abreast of it so that when it does, hopefully, assuming it comes back around to the Chicago, in and around the Chicago Triathlon next year, and hopefully for years to come, we have that much more attendance, and it continues to become a bigger portion and a more exciting version of triathlon that more and more people get to experience and see the energy around the sport. So hopefully they can continue to engage and get involved. So, yeah.
And I'm going to have to jump off because I have a call with USA Triathlon right now. But I was going to mention, if anyone's interested in the SUPERTRI stuff, there's still a couple more races in this series for this year. Toulouse and Neom are coming up, so watch those. You can watch them live. really entertaining, and it's not like watching a multi-hour triathlon. It's basically an hour of racing, or less in some cases, but very, very entertaining. And then in the winter time too, there's the SUPERTRI events, which is kind of what they used to call the Super League Triathlon Arena Games, where they race on a full deck, on smart trainers and treadmills. So that's another fun, exciting format to watch. So yeah, definitely check that out if you can.
Well, Chris, thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate always your insight and opinions on things, but enjoy the rest of your work day. And Joy and I will stick around and talk more about other tries and other races, and a little bit about things that we're planning for the off season. So thanks for being with us, Chris.
Awesome. I'll see you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.